bang on time as always. As a policy, we are trying to cover the less taught areas and less understood parts of being an international athlete. I think a lot of these areas of nutrition, mental fitness, measurement, etc., are often underestimated, and we are covering this. Today is nutrition, and probably one of the most important parts, unless you have proper nutrition and all the nutrition is going and energizing the right parts of your body, it's very unlikely that you will have proper mental fitness, and you really won't be able to perform irrespective of how well you may be tacking or jiving or your downwind speeds or your upwind speeds. I think nutrition is super critical. So, we are hopefully at the end of this presentation, you will have the best possible advice internationally as far as nutrition is concerned. This presentation is going to be a little longer than the earlier ones, and it's probably going to go right up to about 11:30, so be prepared for that. However, we will have some breaks in the middle, between sections, and so therefore you need to formulate and ask your questions on chat. There is a chat button at the bottom of your screen, so you ask your questions there, and in turn me as moderator will ask Thomas the questions. So I hand over to you, Thomas, again, and thanks very much for everybody being with us. And Thomas, your stream.
Good morning, everyone. It's been a week, right, since we've seen each other. Today we're going to be going through quite difficult topic. Difficult because I think for most of us, even for me, at some point it was very new. It's new. It's not so obvious in life to use tips regarding food supplementation, and even in when we are sportsmen, it's not so very common to go through that knowledge and information required actually to know what we are doing with the food. So as Mr. Suhim explained, today we're going to go with 3 breaks. Breaks, I mean gaps between particular pieces of material. We're going to go through protein, carbs, and fats. And after each section, I would like you to be ready to ask, during, of course, the section, ask questions. And after each section is finished, we're going to go through the questions to make it very clear that this topic is done. And then we'll move forward. So please, first slide on. Before we'll go to particular to carbs, protein, and fats, just like a beginning, like an opening to actually food theme. I really suggest, and I really like that kind of rule, which is called SANE, because it's quite easy to understand and it's easy to go through every day with everyday supplementation. You don't have to be bothering your mind too much to actually stay with the SANE rule. And what is SANE? SANE is satiety, the speed in which our body reaches fullness level. So remember that we're going to chat. Remember that every word, every gap, I'm sorry, not gap, every sentence is connected with food today. So if we are talking speed in which our body reaches fullness level, it means we eat and how quick we actually feel that our brain is sending us the information, okay, we are full. So that's satiety. Aggression, it's A. Level of probability that eaten calories will storage as fat layer. Increased glucose level at the moment of the meal. So here, this is a particular rule which describes if we are eating a bar, right, a candy. So after eating the candy, our glucose level will increase rapidly. And if we eat more carbs, and eat aggressive food, it means our glucose level in the body will be tilt. And what else we will eat, it will be stored in fat. Nutrition, it's N. It means amount of vitamins, minerals, and amino acids, fatty acids, in particular calorie. So it's also regarding food, not dishes. We are not talking about full dish. We're not talking about biryani today, okay? We're not talking about dal tadka. We are talking about particular pieces, like one vegetable, um, rice, avocado, and so on and so on. Okay, so please understand that we are not talking about dishes and meals. We're talking about single units. And E, finally, from sane, it's efficiency. It's a tempo in which calorie will transform into fat layer. And by that, please switch to the table, and I will explain what the efficiency means. Efficiency. So efficiency means basically how the calorie will, the easiest of transforming inside the body. So if it's a carbohydrate, right? It's very easy to be stored as fat, because the process inside, when we take carbohydrate inside, the processes are like simple, quite simple, not too difficult. And you can see that 70% can be converted to fat. So whenever you eat carbohydrates, 70% of the calories provided with carbohydrate can be stored as fat. Particularly for fat, it's only 65%. So imagine that you are eating pure fat. You are eating pure meat, like pure piece of fat, skin or whatever, bacon, like almost like bacon, right? So only 65% actually from that bacon can be stored by our body as fat. And if you move to protein, you will actually see that only 35% of protein can be stored as fat. And that's because of the conversion process inside our body, which is happening, which is causing the calorie to actually release energy inside. So if we take, even if we drink protein shake, right? So it's going to be pure protein. We're going to drink it. So only 35% of that drink can be, after some time, can be stored in fat. And that's actually the efficiency. So the tempo in which calorie will transform into fat later. And now, question, does a calorie is the same as calorie? So if we eat 250 calories, is it the same at all time? The answer is no. The calories which we intake with food products are not exactly even. So don't get me wrong. 1 calorie is a calorie, right? And 1 calorie is a calorie. It's the same amount, but that amount can be a little bit different inside. So what that amount covers. So imagine that you take 250 calories in a cookie, so in a sweet, 250 calories in a broccoli, so in vegetable. So it's the same amount of calories, but calories are different. The amount of minerals, vitamins, amino acids, and everything actually differs. It's different. It's completely different. So it's necessary for our sportsmen to actually understand which calorie is good, which product is good, which is going to help us to perform better, and then so on and so on. With same type of food, so with our rule, we may stay full, so we can feel that we are okay, we are fine, we are not hungry longer. Example, if you eat, again, a cookie, if you are hungry and you eat a cookie, will you get full? No, completely. Even if you eat a whole package of cookies when you are hungry, you will not feel full. After maybe in for some very short period of time, like for 15, 20 minutes. But very quickly, after that whole package of cookies, you will still get hungry, which is exactly what I'm trying to tell you. So with the same rule, we will stay longer full. The glucose level will not rapidly increase, and extra calories will not be converted into fat. Same food decreases the probability of gaining fat mass. So if we don't want to get too much fat layer, like belly and so on, same food will help us to stay fit. And same food will also decrease the genetical body weight. It's a very important topic, genetical body weight. We're not going to focus on it today, but it's there. And actually, same food will help you to stay at low level of that body weight. preserve non-fat body mass and keep you healthier. Non-fat body mass means more muscles, lean body, less fat. Okay, next slide, please. This is an example of sane food. So just look at, focus on the lower panel where you see the sane spectrum. So which type of food are most sane and which are actually not sane. So which are not getting you full, feeling full, which are getting you, which are very aggressive. So easily getting as fat layer, and less nutrition. So they don't have actually not so much proteins. They don't have so much minerals and vitamins. So on the left, you can see sane food. On the right, you will see less sane. If you want, we can chat about it. If you have any questions, we can chat about it more. But for now, I think you can see clearly that non-starchy vegetables, proteins like meat, fish, and also vegetables, whole food fats, avocado, egg, and so on, low fructose fruits. These are the type of foods which are quite sane. And then on the right-hand side, which is not sane, we have sweets, starches, so bread, and other fats. Fats like every processed food, every quick grab. So fast food, it's not sane food. You will get hungry, and that food will easily get into your body. It will be transformed as a fat layer. Next slide, please. Okay, so now we're gonna start with the carbohydrates. With that saying, I hope you will have like questions when we go through the presentation. You will ask yourself, okay, so which type of the food is sane? And we can actually point out a couple of things which are sane and which are completely not. But now, carbs. Don't be afraid of the naming of the words here and the names like glucose, glycogen, and so on. Don't be afraid, because it's not as difficult as it seems. I will try to explain it in the easiest possible way. We'll go through easily. And if you want to get a little bit inside, you can always check again in that presentation and learn, get deeper. So that presentation is actually having the couple of simplest tips, but also if you want, it can give you a little bit more detailed information. So what is carbohydrate? Carbohydrates are responsible for energy transition processes in the human body. They appear mainly in plant-based food products. So I will give you an example. I'm laughing because I cannot forget about it. When I was doing that presentation and looking for cool pictures, I've seen that pyramid, one of those food chain pyramids, right? You can have plenty of those in the internet. And that pyramid was actually showing good carbs, okay fats, very good carbs. And in very good carbs, there was a chicken. There was a picture of a chicken in very good carbohydrates. And just, if you don't know, then I will let you know that chicken has no carbohydrates. So it's an example of the amount of sometimes not precise information in the internet. So whenever you type and you find something, you have to be really careful with that information. Here in the presentation, I tried to make it, those are facts. This is no, this is good information. This is a good piece of information. In the internet, you will find it will differ. Trust me, if you will type whatever you want to learn, you will find an article which is precise, but you will actually also find an article which is completely not. And let's stay here. Let's stay with what we have. So for athlete, most important carbohydrate is glucose. I think you heard glucose. Well, we heard that name. And polysaccharide glycogen, which is built from glucose molecules. Glycogen is our energy storage material. Note that monosaccharides like fructose or galactose absorbed by the intestine are then transformed into glucose in the liver. My goodness, so difficult. Okay, so now turn to the right to look at the tables. And to easily explain what we are talking about is that carbohydrates are divided into simple sugars, very simple sugars, multi-sugars, which are actually combined simple sugars, and that's it. So glucose is a simple sugar, but it's a good sugar. It's for us, it's a good sugar. You need to realize that if you take anything, right? If you take biryani, if you eat it, so your body has to actually do something with that biryani, right? So in order to take carbohydrates from that biryani, it will, inside our body, the process will convert carbohydrates into glucose, because our body, muscles, and all processes, even when we breathe, we need energy, and energy is provided by glucose inside our body. So it's good to know. Monosaccharides, so it's a very long and difficult word, but it actually means simple sugars, simple. And some of that simple sugars are really bad, and they can be particularly seen in sweets. Sugar is not good. Multi-sugars, much better, much better, and they are stored in particular also food. But look at from multi-sugars, you have also what particular type of multi-sugars, and there is in polysaccharide. So multi-sugar that is combined with at least 10 simple sugars, it's glycogen. And we're going to focus on glucose and glycogen, not to make it too difficult. Glycogen is our storage material. It's very important for us because it's actually stored in our skeletal muscles, in liver, and you will learn soon what does it do in our body. Okay, energy acquired from glucose oxidation used as fuel to our biological processes, working muscles and central nervous system. So actually, whatever you do, you need energy. If you move, if you walk to the club, if you do your boat, you need energy. And that energy is made inside, is produced inside of your body through glucose oxidation. Sensation and now. So that was a little bit difficult. Now make it simple. Sensation of weakness during physical activity is related to the exhaustion of glycogen. So if you are running and suddenly you feel you are like, oh my goodness, I'm very tired, or if you are sailing, if you are doing a race and you feel that you are getting tired, it means glycogen level dropped, done. High amount of glycogen storage before long physical activity, above 90 minutes, will have a significant positive effect on athlete endurance. So here I'm saying, if you think about your training, your regatta, your exhaustion time in advance, and you eat properly, you're going to make it through much more easily. So you're going to feel stronger, you're going to feel better, and during the exercise and activity, you will feel that you can do it. Recommended carbohydrate daily intake in the diet varies between 45 and 65%, of which only 10% simple sugars. That's why we have that division, simple sugars and polysaccharides, so multi-sugars, because simple sugar is only 10% of full carbohydrate intake. Carb meals should constitute more than half a daily meal amount. Important, but there's a good tip in the end. It is best to focus on carb meals before a long activity. So before, like a racing day, all right? If you're going on the water to have 3 races or whatever you're going for the training, prepare your carb meal before that exercise and shortly after. So I'm not saying to you, and there's no such suggestion that you should eat carbs all day. No, you actually should focus particularly before exercise and after exercise. And last tip, avoid carbs after 7 p.m. Unless really late trainings, unless racing finish at late hours, if you are enduring a regatta and so on. But why do you want to avoid carbs? Because if you remember the previous slide, we said that 70% of the carbohydrates can be stored as fat. And it means that if you eat a lot of carbohydrates before sleep, so when your body doesn't need energy, right, you're going to sleep. So you don't need too much energy. You're not going to be working out. So your body doesn't need too much energy, but you are giving it a lot of energy. And you are giving it a lot of energy with a product which is easily going to go to your fat. So it's actually, it's very, I think it's simple for you. I hope it's simple for you to understand why I'm saying not to eat too much carbs before you go to sleep. It's better to eat proteins then. Next slide, please. On the left, glucose circulation. Don't get too much dizzy with those names, glycogenolysis, glycogenesis, and so on. It's, again, if you want to get deeper, it's there for you waiting. Simple as I'm trying to be as simple as possible. When you eat, through your blood, the calories, actually the carbohydrates, are going to go to your muscles. So glucose, which is provided, is going to go to your muscles, and then they're in the muscles. In particular, I'm showing out my arm because I'm covered, but every piece of your body muscle will get that glucose as energy. And then through glycolysis, so a process which is actually turning glucose to energy, it will provide energy for the body. And then, as you can see, we have glycogen somewhere in between, because as we discussed, glycogen is our storage energy. It's not fat. It's not fat. It's energy. We don't have too much of it. So fat, you have a lot of fat, right, in your body. But it's not, glycogen is not fat. Glycogen is, you can see one of the right, on the blue tips, glycogen is particularly responsible for the boost energy. Short, if you are running for an hour, you will most probably you will use most of the glucose that you provided before the running, but glycogen is for a short period of time with very intense activity. And you can see on the left that you only actually have half a kilo, so 100 grams in liver glycogen fasting, and 400 grams as skeletal muscles of glycogen in your body. So it's not much. It's not much. And it means longer you wish to train, you should, during that training, supply carbohydrates, not to let that glycogen level go very, very low. If the glycogen level goes very, very low, you feel tired, exhausted, and your performance will go down. Okay, so now the blue tips on the right hand side. We can establish two metabolic energy processes, aerobic and anaerobic. And again, trying to make it as simple as possible. Aerobic, oxygen, right? You need oxygen for aerobic process. And that aerobic process gives you long-term energy, long-term. Anaerobic process, quick power boost, short period of time. So whenever your body is making energy without oxygen, and that's exactly where the glycogen, where our energy storage is used, so then it's only for a short period of time. So you will not be able to generate enough energy by anaerobic processes. If we supplement carbohydrates adequately, we shall stop our muscles from using proteins in energy process too soon. So it actually means that if we're gonna go prepared for the training, and during the training we'll take carbohydrates in, our muscles will be safe. So you will not destroy them too much. Simple as it is. After meals, the endogenous processes which produce glucose are stopped. In that state, if that state extends in time, it may cause a significant fall of glucose level in the body system. Again, very difficult, right? I mean, it sounds so exhausting. But again, simple as it is, if you have 2 meals in the day, 2 meals in the day, so you're not eating frequently. You have only two big gap between meal and meal. It means your glucose level will drop and you will feel tired, you will feel less energetic, you will not be able to focus like like we discussed in previous presentation that you should. So carbohydrates are also responsible for that process. And in the end, only 50 of the glucose is absorbed from food into skeletal muscles. It means you have to understand that if you are eating a bar during a training, and in that bar you have written that you have 25 carbohydrates of, in the bar 25 grams of carbohydrates. So actually, for your energy process, you will use only 50. It's necessary to understand it. Next slide, please. And now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is beauty. This is, I know it looks quite challenging, but if you get inside, it's very simple and it's a beauty, beauty. Because this is actually from best doctors and professors and people who are living their lives with medicine. Those numbers are given for you, for me, for you as a sportsman. This is the best way to prepare for regatta, to prepare for event, and so on and so on. What I'm saying is, for example, carbohydrate intake due to glycogen storage maximalization. So what we discussed, that you want to be ready for the event, Overall recommendations: preparing for a race more than 90 minutes. So before regatta, you know that you're gonna have windy conditions. So look, on the right-hand side, we see that you have to intake 7 to 12 grams of carbohydrate for each of the kilogram of your body mass per day. So it means if I'm 70 kilogram, I should take 700 grams of carbohydrate intake before important regatta event racing. It's a lot. I know it's a lot, and but it's if you will start to implement a couple of those rules, you will feel massive difference. Suddenly you will feel less dizzy, you will feel more energy, you will be more powerful, and even if the training will be very long, you will not feel tired. You will just go through it, everything will be fine. So those are the tips. Here in that tables, you will find the most precise and best suggestions about eating. Look on the second label, short physical training, less than 45 minutes. And we can see not needed. So if you're going through short trainings like jogging, running, you don't have to think about carbohydrates. But then look, if you're actually doing extremely long endurance, the fourth, the very bottom, so between 2.5 and 3 hours, you should, during that training, you should take up to 90 grams of carbohydrates. And now ask yourselves as athletes, have you ever eaten more than 2 bars during sailing training? No, right? You're not. You are only drinking water and that's it. So I'm saying here to you that it's very important to intake carbohydrates while you're training. Next slide. Oh, 1.5 hours. Okay, let's do it. India style. So what type of food can be taken as carbohydrates? We can see vegetables, beautiful, right? And it's good. It's good for your health. It has a lot of minerals. It's very, very nice. On the right, you have the complex carbs, which we discussed, right? You remember? Simple carbs and multi-carbs. So multi-carbs you have on the top, it's broccoli, it's oatmeals, banana, pasta, sweet potato, and below, so simple carbs and particular examples of bad simple carbs, it's Coca-Cola, donuts, and so on, so sweets. You don't want that. Now, important 3 rules below. Carbs intake during training will boost your endurance through saving liver and skeletal muscle glycogen, so that 5 kilo of glycogen, which you said is like your boost energy, it will be saved until the last moment if you actually take food during training. Sustaining glucose concentration in plasma, very important, and sustaining high tempo of aerobic metabolic processes. Again, I know it sounds very difficult, but it just means that while taking food during training, you will help your body produce energy. Done. Next slide. Again, examples of good carbohydrates, especially on the left, you can see before and after training. So you have brown rice, quinoa, green peas, whole grain pasta, and more. As you can see, unfortunately, I know it's difficult for you as Indian citizens, but there is no white rice. White rice is not the best way to intake carbohydrates. If you can, try to eat brown because it has much more to offer. It has much more minerals and it's much more nutrition. Same rule again, same. It's much more nutritious than white rice. And on the right, you have Vitargo, which is a very good quality carbohydrate powder, which you can mix in the water. So you can also provide carbohydrates during a training. Next slide, please. Okay, sum up tips. Focus on the carb supplementation, especially before and after, before and during regatta. So I'm saying you should be focusing, particularly when you are preparing yourself for the event, okay? When you are training here, maybe you don't have to take 700 grams of carbohydrates every day, but it's still good to understand what we are doing. Use energy gels, bars, water mixed carbs, and light meals for on-water supplementation. Eat frequently during the day. Avoid being stuffed. Don't think of a sweet as a good source of carbs. Again, simple carbs, and it's not a good, it's sugar. It's particularly sugar, and it's not good as a carbohydrate intake, excuse me. They are based on monosaccharides, often processed from bad quality ingredients. Eat your regenerating meal maximum up to 45 minutes after tough training. So carbohydrates intake 45 minutes after training. So it means, look what it means. It actually means, if you are 49er sailors, if you are there, because you know what I'm gonna say. If we are going for gut buster training and you are going for 3 hours on the water and you burned 1,500 calories at least, and you go back on the shore, and then what you do? You take down the sails, right? You wash the boat, blah, 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 and so on. Then we have a chat. It takes at least an hour or even more until you actually get some food. Here, you have, as a fifth tip, you can see that it's a no-go. You should actually, if you are thinking about best performance, of course, you should actually take carbs 45 minutes after that kind of training. So you go on the shore, you're finished, take down your sails, and you eat. You eat what you prepared. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I found out very important information. Training in heat. Training in heat. So particularly for us here, particularly for us. And long story short, I'm really strongly suggesting that you need to take carbohydrates during training, because you'll get quickly exhausted more than in cold temperatures. Your mental process will drop significantly. You need to eat during water trainings at all times. You have to have that bar, at least 1-2 bars per training, or a gel, whatever, but you have to take it. Next slide. Okay, that's the first break. Questions up till now. What do we have?
Right, just give me a moment. Okay, this has come from Advait Menon. Many scientific studies by scientists from various countries show that proteins coming from plants, such as beans, are better than animal proteins. Moreover, when you eat meat, you even get excess fat in your body. Many sportsmen like Novak Djokovic and Swiating are vegan and vegetarian diet. What are your views on this? I think we did discuss vegan diets in the past.
As you can see, we have protein right now, so it's not the question. Let's ask that question when we finish proteins. Let's go to carbs. Any question regarding carbs?
Glucose on the water, when you provide sailors or athletes glucose while on the water between races, etc., it is reputed to produce a huge high. And then after a while, you come through a glucose low. So what's your opinion on that?
As we discussed, there was a moment when we discussed that long period before meals, it's not good. Long time, it's not good. And again, sanity of the product. So how fast the product we eat will stake that glucose level. So it's important to not eat very simple sugars while training at all the time. So your products which you eat should be also protein and fat. It's not like only carbs. That's why normally, typically when you eat a bar, it has carbs, fat, and protein. So that's why we eat it. It's not pure glucose. It's gonna have other ingredients as well. But remember that if you are not training and you eat a lot of sweets and glucose, then it will be easily going to your body as fat. And yes, right, the level of glucose will drop significantly. But if you are doing an exercise, training, and if you are actually racing, that drop will not happen until you finish racing. That drop will not happen because you are all the time needing energy. You are pumping, you're hiking, and you need energy. That's why that glucose is all the time used. You're all the time burning it. So until you're actually doing exercise, that glucose level will still be somewhere here, not spike. Okay? That's why we are talking about eating carbohydrates while you are training.
Sure. Stretching after a meal, after you come back from sailing. So stretching after a meal or stretching before a meal or a little bit of both? After training, then.
You don't have to stretch particularly immediately after training. You can stretch also in the afternoon. It's not like you have to do it exactly after training. You have to remember to do it. It's good to do it exactly after, but if you don't have time, you still take another period in the afternoon to do it. So it's not essential, very essential to make it exactly after training. But it is essential to eat carbs until 45 minutes after training.
And what about the meal? When you come back from training, be it the gym training or be it 3 hours on the water, how important is it to have a meal? And should you have a little bit of a meal before stretching, or should you have it immediately after stretching, assuming that the stretching is going to happen within about 20 minutes of arrival?
Listen, I would say forget about stretching. First food, and then when you are already nutritious, when you eat, then stretching. So don't miscalculate. Stretching you can do, as we discussed, whenever in the day, right? Your body needs energy now. It needs to be replenished now because you just finished training. So first food, then stretching.
Last question for this section, and that is your opinion on the buildup of lactic acid and how to prevent it.
It's more about so we are talking about anaerobic glucose now. It's a little bit how to prevent it. So if you're gonna take carbs during the training, right? During the training, you will use less fat and less amino acids inside of your body as energy, right? Because amino and fatty acids, they are actually producing lactate, right? I mean, mostly. So that's a spare product of anaerobic glycolase, right? So if you give glucose and your body can actually take it and produce quickly energy, you are again saving glycogen, and the processes of that anaerobic processes are a little bit not so damaging. So there is less lactate. That's why we actually feel very tired and you feel muscle ache. So it's not related, but it's also because we are not eating. It's everything. If you are not producing energy, you can imagine it that it's actually like getting very empty inside, getting very empty, and your body is taking what it can to provide that energy. So if your body is taking what it can, then it produces a lot of lactate, and then your body can get stored with too much of it, and then it can actually cause you also a metabolic diseases. So it's important to eat food while you're training.
Very much. I think you can continue with your presentation.
Okay, proteins now. Protein, it's constructed from amino acids connected with peptide bindings. Again, on the right hand side we can see, excuse me, the division of proteins. You can go deeper if you like, staying simple as we can. On the left, exogenous proteins is the proteins we take. So there are proteins which you actually have to intake with food. Conditional exogenous proteins, so you have to, but it's not very, very essential. It's not so essential as with the exogenous ones. And endogenous proteins, they are actually, your body is producing that kind of proteins on its own. But we will have an example of those exogenous proteins in the next slide. Protein supplementation, very essential for proper body development, increase of muscle mass, regeneration of destroyed tissues. Animal origin proteins, highly nutritious, contain most of the exogenous amino acids, 95% rate of digestibility. So it means if you eat particular proteins from meat, it's 95%, you will take it. In plant origin protein, less nutrition, mostly because of the decreased amount of lysine, tryptophan, and methionine. 85% rate of digestibility. Best nutrition protein, soybean, and chickpea. Excess amount of protein intake might be utilized in energy processing. You remember that only 35% of the proteins can be stored as fat. This is exactly why. Yet, to use the amino acids properly by working muscles, the amino acid have to be transferred primarily to liver and then converted into glucose in the gluconeogenesis process. That makes it much less efficient and slow. And that's also why protein is not so easy to be turned to fat. Done. But that's simply not fast enough to sustain working muscles demand. So while we are training, while we are doing a lot of exercise and we are actually needing energy, protein is not the best. Protein is for keeping your muscles nutrition after and before training. But during the training, if you supply protein, it's just the process that you will need to go through inside. It's a little bit more complicated and it's not fast enough to produce enough energy for you to exercise. Except BCAA, different topic. So BCAA, branched chain amino acid, it presence in the muscle, in the body system, decreases the amount of creatine kinase and lactate dehydrogenase LDH compound, which are directly connected to muscle destruction and lower physical capacity. Recommended food sources: dairy products, meat, wheat protein, soy, and whey protein isolate. Next slide. 45 already. Okay, now it's a little bit, so please pay attention. The person who asked the question about proteins and sportsmen going into plant diets, pay attention here, because that's just an example. So we have an example of muscle building meat protein, right? You can see how much protein you can get from particular products. You also have below, you have the plant products, which you have to take to provide proteins. Next slide. This is also an example of protein in egg. So we are calling the egg protein as the model one. It's just one of the most purest protein you can find in nature, and that you can find it in the egg. So as you can see, white of the egg has nothing else than just pure protein. On the top right corner, you see that supplement, Extreme Whey, whatever brand it is. But I pointed it out because remember when we talked about the division of proteins? So there was the names which are very difficult to remember. But here, actually, you can see that on the label of that product, of every supplement you take, you have particularly the names of the protein also inside in that label. So now it's less scary, because if you will see the label and you will see names, you can go back to that presentation and see, okay, so that's a protein, that's okay, you can understand more, and you can see actually what you are taking in. Dairy products, also a very good source of protein. Next slide. Food macro elements, protein. If you base on plant food, it is very important to mix products in the diet. So that's also a little bit of the answer for the question that you made about protein and protein diet. So yes, it's good. Yes, it's healthy. And yes, it might be used by the best, but you have to understand what you are doing. Because, example, combine grain products, high amount of methionine. If you go back to the label of proteins, methionine is one of them, with legume veggies, high amount of lysine. So each protein is responsible for something. And if you, for example, have a plant-based diet and you don't know about that kind of stuff, then you can actually go through the line which you are not giving your body enough lysine or enough methionine on enough of any other protein, and you will think that you are staying healthy, but suddenly no, because you are actually missing a couple of products which you should take as a mix, as a combined diet, right? So the best answer to that question would be that plant diet is surely it's good, it can be used, but it's much more complicated and it's not easy to understand what you're going through. So you have to learn more. Adult human loses up to 40 protein daily to do metabolic cellular processes. It means for your system, for your processes inside the body, not particularly energetical ones, but in cellular ones, you use 40 grams of protein. So you have to give it. You have to provide that 40 grams of protein, and that's only the beginning. So that's 40 grams is only like a must. Like you cannot function without 40 grams of protein daily, because your system, your body needs it. It is recommended to increase the protein demand, especially in the muscle building process, even up to 3 grams per 1 kilogram of your body mass. And in sudden periods, and look now, I actually haven't thought about it, but we are quite easily getting sick here in India, and you are having a break time. And after break time, you're actually coming and you are saying like, oh my God, you are looking weaker, you are feeling weaker, and of course you got sick. But this is a good tip. And you should increase protein in sudden periods of no physical activity, injuries, sickness, to prevent the fat-free body mass loss, of course. So prevent the loss of your muscle. So whenever you are sick, you should think about proteins, right? Because it will preserve your muscles. So your stamina will be there quicker when you get through that sickness. It is particularly essential for vegetarians to control their protein amount intake due to the lack of particular exogenous amino acids in plants. Vegetarians are endangered to muscle mass loss, weaker health, and less satisfying physical training effects. Again, it's because of lack of awareness. It's because if you are eating just particular type of plant food, you're not probably intaking enough of those different type of proteins. It is not recommended to overdose the protein amount above 35%. Not recommended because it can destroy your liver and kidney. And now, while supplementing with higher dose of daily protein, you have to drink more water. It's essential to digest. We had it also in previous presentations. Supplement calcium because it is being released from bones in higher quantities to sustain proper blood pH level. Supplement with B12 and B6, very important for veggies, for vegetarians, very important. Lack of those vitamins will cause an increase of homocysteine amount in the blood, which will result in higher risk of atherosclerosis. Important. If you are vegetarian, watch out for too much plant protein intake. It may significantly increase the amount of fiber, and that will cause diarrhea, bloating, and other bad symptoms. Again, a little bit of an answer to the question about protein diet and meat mixed diet. On the right, you have a table. It's beautiful. It's pure fact. Expert group, you have different types of groups like nutrition working group, International Olympic Committee. And they are saying to you, as a sportsman, you should take at least 1.2 to 1.6 grams of protein daily in normal routine. We are not talking about building muscles and so on. Normal, daily. So if you are 70 kgs of weight, you should actually eat 100 grams of protein at least daily. Next slide, please. This is one of the best I could find, very nice example of plant protein. So we can see that you have almond, you have almonds, you have hazelnuts. So basically everything, nuts are beautiful. Nuts are very good for your brain. It's also a very good source of fat and protein. You have a lot of proteins also in broccoli, in spinach. So there are plenty. Avocado is not the best, as you can see. Unfortunately, that's a picture which I downloaded from the internet, but I can tell you that avocado is not the best source of protein. It's best fat source, best, very good fat, very healthy fat, and nature fat. But as for protein, so it doesn't have too much. It doesn't have too much. So you see that actually in one full medium size, so like very big, I would say quite big veggie, you have only 10 grams. You have to eat all of that avocado to take 10 grams. It's not efficient. Next slide, please. Protein sum up tips. So focus on protein supplementation to build muscle mass and prevent its quick exhaustion during physical activity. Remember to do it also in periods of longer rest, non-active, and sickness to protect your muscle and non-fat body mass. So I think you see the difference, right? You can see the difference between carbs and protein, which is it's a little bit like it's getting all together. It's summing up. It's combined. Carbs, so carbs, energy during training, and protein. So protein we need when we want to preserve the muscle. So after training, at some point, maybe in the morning, particularly in the morning, or maybe also before the night, because as we know, before the night, if you take protein, it will not easily be stored as fat. So there are a couple of, you can see, I hope you can see those ways that you can use those tips we just talked about. If you are a veggie, be extra careful, you need to know more. Drink plenty of water to help digest. In exhausting training days, you may also want to supplement the BCAA because it's not easy to provide enough BCAA into your body by food. So you can think about supplementing additionally with powder or whatever. It will help your muscles recover and you will feel less tired. And ladies and gentlemen, a week ago, I finished my BCAA product and I'm really feeling more tired after training. I can just feel it. My muscles are just more exhausted. Next day when I wake up, I'm not so fresh after training. I feel a little bit like aching. And I feel that I have actually been doing some exercise. Before, when I was supplementing in water, I felt like almost nothing happened. Like the previous training did not happen. I felt so refreshed. So it's good. BCAA is actually helping a lot. Finish your muscle body training. You finished your gym, quickly drink a protein shake, up to 15 minutes. And again, look, protein 15 minutes after training, carbs 45. It's obvious you're not going to eat like a very big meal of proteins just after the training. So you can actually make that short, especially after gym trainings, right? When you are particularly focusing on muscle building. So you take that protein shake, whatever you have there, and then after next 25, 30 minutes, you take a meal. So carbs. It's everything there nicely holding up together. Questions now regarding proteins. Questions regarding proteins, any? Hello, hello. Question?
Yeah, I think one of the big takeaways from what you've said is that the protein during lack of activity and sickness, very often what happens in India is that when you're not well, everybody tends to have rice and curds, easier stuff. But
Exactly.
I think you switch that around, and I think it's important to also look at, maybe chicken soup, mutton soup, maybe, some sort of protein, maybe broccoli and all that while you're not well. So this is an important takeaway from what you've said. Can you just give us a small talk on high fiber diets and the importance of high fiber diet?
Well, particularly if you're a plant eater, then you have plenty of fiber. You don't have to think about it because you're just taking it, and it's a lot. And so you actually should know if you're not taking too much, because as we discussed, too much fiber can cause diarrhea, bloating, and any more unwanted symptoms. So it's also about awareness, especially when you are a plant foodie. You have to learn which plant has how much fiber, and then count it a little bit so you're not taking too much. Fiber is good. Fiber, it helps you digest, it helps you release in the proper amount. It's good because it's not storing the food inside of your intensive. I'm particularly that kind of that presentation was very tough for me because I've never used so much new words in English. So it's not holding the food in your body more than you need. Fiber just lets you release it. So it's very good. It's a very, very common and very needful product, but be aware that not to take it too much. Excuse me. Mam prezentację, także cały się, papa.
Sure. Thanks, Tom. And that, I think, pretty much no more questions. And so as far as fiber is concerned, in India, you call it isabgol or psyllium husk, and there are many sources of fiber. I think too much is not good and too little is also not good. So you need to balance that. Thanks.
Sure. So I will answer more. Now I will try to answer that question, which I was all the time referring to during the protein. So protein diet, again, the final statement for myself. Protein diet might be very good. Of course, it's healthy, but again, it might be also very dangerous for you. It might be, and surely, it's very expensive. It's very expensive. So those sportsmen that you actually look up to, they have tons of money, and then I can assure you that 80% of them, they are not making their own food. They're just paying someone to cook it for them because it's very time taking. So meat, if you are combining meat with vegetables, sometimes after the training, you can just put a chicken on the pan, right? Cook it and then eat it, and you have 20 and eat it with vegetables, right? You mix just like a couple of leaves, peanuts, whatever, boom, meat, done, and it's a meal, and it takes 15 minutes, and you can go on. If you make plant meals, it's going to take much more than this to prepare a decent, well combined meal. That's why it's not easy. And that will be my final statement on that topic. Should we go further to fats? Should we continue, or are there any other questions?
No more questions. Please continue.
Okay, and next slide, please. Fats. Fats are actually the most difficult, I would say, to understand and to go with, because carbs and proteins, I think you can understand most of it. Excuse me. But fats, it's still, because also there are not enough information. Even if you read good books, people will always say that was still not checked. There is still no proper documentaries about that topic, and it's all related to fats. It's a very complicated process, but I also again try to make it as simple as possible. I hope you will like it. So fat, from a chemical point of view, fats can be described as glycerols and 3-glycerol esters. They are commonly described as our energy and storage material. So whenever you are not providing carbohydrates during training, your body will use your fat as energy. It will try. And especially in long-lasting exercises, when you are doing exercises over 1.5 hours, your body will surely use the fatty acids, not fat itself directly, but fatty acids, to produce energy for your movement. Recommended daily amount of fat in diet varies between 20 and 25%. It is not healthy to go below 15. It's very important. So people may think that actually, okay, so if I want to lose weight, I will decrease fat. It's not. It's not. Again, remember about sane food. Fats are very healthy. They can be very useful for you, and don't throw them away. So don't think about fat as a bad thing. No, it's important to know which kind of fat, how much fat, right? But not like fat entirely is bad. It's actually a very important ingredient in your diet, but don't go below 15% of everyday calorie intake. Mono and polyunsaturated fats are much better than saturated ones. They decrease LDL level, bad cholesterol, and decrease, and should be increase, and increase HDL. Increase HDL, that's a mistake, because HDL is a good one. Polyunsaturated fatty acids from N6 and N3, I find it very useful to know about those families. So what actually means N6 and N3? They're a particular type of family of unsaturated fats, and you should look at the products. We're gonna go through it a little bit, but you should study it more because it's very interesting. They are very, in those family N6 and N3, they are very healthy for you. You need them. You need them every day. They are called EFA, essential fatty acids. Essential, as the name states. So fatty acids from N6 family are connected to healthy development of and functioning of entire nerve system. So how we feel the nerve system is related to good fatty acids. Take part in neurotransmitters construction, have anti-allergenic and anti-inflammatory effects. It's important, right? I mean, it sounds difficult, but it's, if you think about it, it really matters to actually provide whatever you can to stay anti-allergic and anti-inflammatory. Support the immune system and help cure obesity and prevent cancer disease. Cure obesity. Can you see the contrast? So actually good fat helps you to get slimmer. It's very important to understand it, to realize that fat is not a bad ingredient. So during extended training above 2 hours, fatty acids provide up to 50% of energy. We discussed that. So after some training, especially the long period one, the body will start to create energy from fatty acids. Free fatty acids might be converted into energy through fat oxidation process and plus Krebs cycle. It's very complicated, so let's leave it as it is. Next slide. Fats made simple. animal-based fishes, plants. Animal-based, and now it's also like, again, we can connect it to the meat and plant diet. So if you actually eat too much meat, and if you are exaggerating, exceeding the amount of meat intake, you also will also exceed the fat intake, and then it might be not healthy for you. It might be causing diseases. So it's everything is connected. That's why it's good to know, to understand, to balance the diet. So animal-based fats, mostly saturated. Remember that name, saturated and unsaturated. Unsaturated, mostly healthy. Saturated, no good. Meat, fat, milk and dairy products, so cheeses, right, and so on, butter, N6 family, healthy fats. They're also there in animal based fats. Eggs, animal tissues, and liver. Those three products are good, are healthy, and they're providing you important N6 family fatty acids. So animal-based fats are needed in the diet, but should not exceed 10% of fat intake. So how much fat you actually eat per day, animal fat should be only only at the level of maximum 10. So Mediterranean diet, normally Mediterranean diet is about 7 to 9% of animal fat. Here in India, I don't know actually how much meat you eat. I think you actually eat more plants than meat, but okay. Good sources of vitamin A and D. Overdose of meat-based fatty acids, it's circular system diseases and cancer. Sounds bad, right? Fishes are healthy. Let's just say it loud. Fishes are very good. They are a very good source of N3 family fatty acids, and they are just good. Any type of fishes, any type. But don't take prawns as a fish. It's a little bit. But prawns are also healthy, but fishes, right? Prawns, not fishes. So fishes are good. They have plenty of good ingredients inside. And plant-based now on the right-hand side, it's also about saturated fat and polyunsaturated. So good and not so good. Saturated fatty acids, cocoa oil, groundnut oil, cacao fat. So I know if you've seen or heard about cocoa oil. Some time ago, of course, it was so healthy. Oh my God, only cocoa oil. We have to cook, you have to do everything on cocoa oil. It's, again, as we discussed from that previous presentation, stay smart. Don't believe to everything blindly to what people will say. So actually, cocoa oil is not so healthy. It's not bad, but it's not too healthy. Very unhealthy, on the other hand, palm oil. And palm oil you will find mostly in processed food. And it's there. It's a particular ingredient in processed food. Palm oil is very unhealthy for you. And again, on the right-hand side, sorry, on the contrary, on the right-hand side, we have polyunsaturated fatty acids, so healthy, good, healthy. It's a high-quality olive oil, most of plant oils, but not too processed ones. Evening primroses, I haven't realized. I also find that out, that evening primroses, I've checked that plant. It's quite extraordinary, but I've heard many good things about that. I haven't checked that yet, haven't eaten it, but I've read many good things about evening primroses oil. Like, you don't use it for cooking, but you actually can use it for salads and so on. It's probably very good, because most of the articles I've read, they are like good thing. Okay, and last, N3 family, it's modified soy. Not too much of that soy. Again, it's good, it's healthy, but everything too much, it's not good. So stay at the level. Linseed oil, soy oil, rape oil, and black currant. Black currant is also a very good source of fat acids, right? Next slide, please. This is an example again of fats good, bad. On the left, we can see avocado, one of the best plant fats you can find. Cheese, nuts, chia seeds, dark chocolate. Look for, excuse me, particularly it's dark chocolate, right? It's not chocolate, it's dark chocolate, and it matters. The name and the product is different because normal chocolates consist contain more sugar, simple sugars, which are not so healthy for you, and processed fat, saturated fat. Dark chocolate is more healthier. It's the best chocolate you can actually have. On the right top corner, we have good fats. So we have animal, because some part of the animal fats, as we discussed, they are also healthy. Salmon, very good fat. Nuts, avocado, very good fat. Olive oil, be careful with the olive oil because after a couple of years ago, again, that was the same. Like olive oil is the best. But remember that different companies produce different types of olive oil. And I've read plenty of articles that some brands of olive oil, this is the sorry for saying it, but this is the shittiest product you can actually find on the market. But they are selling it because it gives them money. So again, we have to be smart. Not every type of olive oil is good. Those, I'm saying those most natural and high quality ones are very healthy. And then bad fats, pizza, chips, and whatever you can find in fast food, it's not good for your health, for sure. I think you know it, but it's a fact that those kind of fatty acids you can find in fast food, it's very bad. And then the best, again, combined, so fishes, nuts, and some of the plants. The nuts are actually very healthy. I know they're not so cheap. They're, especially here in India, they're quite expensive. I know because I'm buying them, but they are good. We can't deny that they are a very good source of protein, fat, and so on. Next slide. Okay, some up tips. So if you want to lose weight by burning fat layer, it does not mean you should decrease fat in your diet. Fatty acids can help you build non-fat body mass, but you have to eat smart. Bad quality fat, especially in processed food, can cause many diseases, and it has a negative impact on athlete performance. Saturated fatty acids are important to absorb some of the vitamins like A, K, E, D. So again, don't think about fat as a bad thing. It's a good one, and you need it to absorb vitamins. Again, especially if you are a plant eater, if you don't eat meat, you need to remember that vitamins you provide with plant, they like fat. They like that oil or whatever you can do, you can put in to help to digest, to absorb the vitamins. Keep their daily intake below 8 and 10 to stay healthy. We discussed the best way to know more about what you eat is to cook on your own. And that's, I know it's not easy again, because who wants to cook? Maybe girls, maybe some of men, but particularly cooking takes a lot of time, right? And it's sometimes it's boring, and you don't want to do it. But if you want to stay in good shape, if you want to have a higher performance, unfortunately, you need to realize that cooking is one of your duties, and you have to make it on your own, because whenever you do it on your own, you know what you're putting inside of the plate. When you're buying it, when you are taking it from the street, I know, I've been there on the street. India has beautiful and amazing street food. I know. But is it healthy for you? Is it like the best which you can get as an athlete? I'm quite, I think it's on quite contrary. So it's not too healthy for you, the street food. Okay, questions. That's last break. So questions about fat.
Well, there aren't too many questions, but here's one from Narendra of AYN. According to wind conditions in the next event, we have to do weight increase or weight decrease. How do we do it with the help of diet? What should we change in the diet to increase the weight, and what should we change in the diet to decrease the weight for the next event?
Okay, perfect. I will leave that because next slides will let you know. I will leave that question. I will keep it in mind. Any other for now?
I think overall, from what you've said, a lot of nice and attractive slides, and it looks like a balanced diet is critical, and you need to listen to your body as it reaches, as it reacts to positive and negative, and positively or negatively to each food item that you consume. So I think we can move on to the next section. Thanks, Thomas. Next section, please.
Okay, next slide then. That's the final three, if I'm correct. So WADA, World Anti-Doping Agency, what I wanted to say here the most is that each of you personally are responsible for your health and what you're taking. And no coach, I know it because I was a sportsman and I bought products on my own, which coach didn't know about. So how can coach be responsible for what you do, right? As a sailor, as an athlete, coach cannot. Coach can give you tips, can explain how important it is, but he cannot be responsible for what you are taking. So whenever you buy a supplement, you are responsible for check the label. As we discussed in that picture with whey, right? You saw that different types of protein. You also find many other substances there in that table, in that label. And you need to confront it with a WAD banned substance list. And I'm quite sure you all received it from YI, from Captain Dixit. I think he sent the email with WADA list to all of the sailors. If you don't, it's easily accessible in internet. But saying that, don't be afraid, because don't be afraid, don't be like frightened by, my goodness, what will happen now? No, food is to be eaten, supplements are to be taken, and don't worry too much, but stay smart. So whenever you're taking something, just try to realize what you're actually doing, right? Because companies they're not paying any attention, and they are not caring about you. They don't care that you're going to be caught with any banned substance. They are just making the product to earn money. So some of the products will be there really good, but some of them might have some banned substances and so on. So it's your responsibility to make sure of it. Next slide. Processed food. So you have example of processed food, and I know you actually eat a lot of it, and I'm also eating it. It's not like you can entirely get rid of the processed food, but it's really, really necessary, and it's really important for you, boys and girls, to decrease, to decrease the amount of the processed food. It's just unhealthy, and I hope you know it, and I hope you try to make it as the amount as low as possible. So who doesn't like to drink Coke, right? Who doesn't like to drink Fanta? Fanta, I read that Fanta is one of the best selling products in India, that Indian people, citizens like Fanta. Okay, but it's still processed food. It's sugar, and it's not healthy for you as a sportsman. Next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, Narendra, so now I will answer your question as well. Learn to count the calories, stay aware. So everything we just discussed, right? That calories and that proteins and carbs. So how can you actually know that you are taking 25% of protein, 35, blah, 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 if you're not counting calories? If you don't know what your BMR, I wanted to say BMR, right? If you don't know how many calories you burn during a day, if you don't know how many calories you burn on the training, so how can you actually know if you are below with your calories still, or you need to eat more, or you are already over and you are gonna be getting fat mass? If you're not counting calories, you will not know. So especially for us, of course, if you're sitting an optimist, if you're preparing for, if you're enjoying sailing, then too much complicated life, it might be boring and it might be difficult. But if you are aiming to get pro, if you're aiming to be at the top level, and if you're thinking about what Narendra asks, so losing, gaining weight, You cannot do it without counting calories, without knowing how much you actually burn. So I can give you my personal example. I counted each calorie for 3 years of my athlete career. Every slice of cheese, boom, I counted it. Every slice of bread, every gram of rice, every gram of vegetables, I was counting it in the labels, and I exactly knew what I'm eating. Now I don't have to, because first of all, I'm a coach already. But even in my later on career, I already had all those numbers in my mind. So I knew, and I'm eating this, that, that. So I have to, okay, so a lot of carbs, less fat. Now I will eat a little bit more of the good fat, and so on. But until you make that level that you know, question, how much calories in a broccoli? Do you know? How much calories in hazelnut? How much calorie is in milk? Do you know? If you don't know, then that's also an answer to your question. So how can you actually gain and lose body weight if you don't know what you're eating, right? So let's start with small things. First, awareness. Awareness. You need to realize what you're doing every day, and then you can do the big goals. So because if you're dropping weight, I will give you another example. 1 gram of fat is 9 calories. 9 calories. So 1,000 grams, I still have time, I'm almost finished. 1,000 gram of fat, 1 kg of fat, it means 9,000 calories. So I will ask you now, if you are losing 2 kilograms in a week, you think you lost it from fat? You think you actually burned 1 kilogram of fat? So the question should be, were you actually below in calorie? Were you below 9,000 calories, below your limit? Surely not. It's not working like this. So particularly, I'm making it very simple. It's not like that entirely, but 1 gram of fat, 9 calories. So 1 kg, 9,000. So it means if you want to burn 1 kilogram of your body fat mass, you need to get below with 10,000 calories. It's a massive challenge for a week. So what is actually happening, you're burning 400, 300 grams of fat, but you are losing water, you are losing also muscle weight, and so on and so on, and you need to know it. It's not only that you lose from fat, no, you're losing from everything. And it's very important, while you're making the process of gaining weight or losing weight, the diet is crucial. It's 100. You have to know exactly what you're doing. So whenever you have that, from now on, whenever you have questions, again, come to me. I will try to help you, and we can go through a nice diet. Particularly, I don't know too many ingredients in India, but I am eager to find out. I'm eager to learn. Remember that I'm from Europe, so it's easier for me I remember all the labels and products from European countries. Here, it's a little bit different. More veggies, more sauces, but I'm eager. I'm eager to learn with you. So that will be it. If you have any other questions, let me know.
Yeah, well, some comments and a question. So overall, I think fantastic lecture, Tom, and I think all of us should probably have a calorie chart with both the Indian and the international equivalents of what the calories are and how many grams of each. Put it up in your house, put it up in your gym, put it up in your boat shed, so you're constantly aware of what you're eating. One of the points I would like to make is rice and wheat are huge issues in India, which means down south, everybody eats rice. And in fact, very often you almost see them eating just plain rice for an entire meal and just a little bit of, maybe lentils and vegetables. And the carb ratio of an typical Indian diet is extremely high because of rice and wheat. So I would suggest that all of us, start focusing on the fact that it needs to be supplemented with a lot of veggies. It needs to be supplemented with legumes and the entire balanced diet and all this tasty stuff which Tom has produced in his chart. But my overall experience and with food habits in India is that it's very, very carb centric and very, very carb focused. So take it easy on that. My question to Tom here is that do you know of any commonly available medicines or supplements which could possibly contain banned substances which are available over the counter, so that we don't consume them by mistake? Supplements or medicines which are OTC.
Well, it varies with the brand and the company which produces it, because as I explained before, different companies producing the same product, so protein. One company can be very precise and make a good protein, and the other cannot. I mean, may not. So it's up to us to learn the labels. If you trust the company and if you know that the company is good, as I did in my career, then I was using particularly products of that company. But normally in BCAA, in protein supplementation, there should be no banned substances. But also in my personal experience, I bought once protein which actually had in the label, it had enough banned substance that if I would get caught, if I would be checked. So again, it's up to company, not a particular part of supplement like protein or BCAA or acids, and don't take any pills like fat burning pills. Don't buy medicine which have a very big logo on it, like this is for fat burning, this is for mental. No, so that don't do it. More, if you want to supplement protein, so focus on protein and find particular company and a product which is surely clean. That's what you can do, nothing else.
Nice, guys. I think that brings us to the end of this on nutrition and supplements. And Tom, just one last request, and maybe if you could spend some time researching what kind of proteins, depending on the age of each sailor, and let's say you start at about 6 to 9 and then 9 to 12, what would you recommend which is available freely in the Indian market in terms of supplements like whey protein and maybe even vitamins and stuff like that, fish oil or whatever you feel is appropriate? And then if you give us that list, it'll be of great help to all the sailors, because everyone is, fighting brands. And sometimes it's difficult to read a label or read into a label or into the contents of the thing. So it would be a great help if you can give us a supplement list. And of course, the high protein stuff like levels, which can increase our levels, and mainly on the supplements. Thanks very much, guys. There's going to be a poll here. Just a small announcement, and that is the next series is going to start on Thursday, and on Sunday next. The timing on Sunday will probably change a bit, but otherwise Thursday and Sunday we're going to have circumnavigation, and we're going to start with Dilip Donde talking about his first solo circumnavigation around the globe, followed by Abhilash Tomi, who's going to come on Sunday. And then we are looking forward to the Trishna team telling us all about their first experience. And of course, hopefully we'll have the girls also. And then the final one will probably be again from Abhilash Tomi talking about the Golden Globe race. So thanks very much. And please keep in touch. Tell you and yourself and your friends to please register on the WhatsApp group, because that gives us an idea as to who's coming on, who's coming off. There's a small poll that is coming on now, and you all can respond to that. Thanks very much for being with us, and look forward to next Thursday.
Thank you, everybody, as well. I would actually like to answer your question, Suhim, or your request.
Yeah.
Because I can try to find out, as you suggested, for the kids especially, the food that you can find in common markets and so on, which can be found and they are good for a particular age and contain proteins and so on. That I can do. But regarding supplements, I cannot, because my coaches from the past and really my mentors, actually, they've always repeated that nobody will give you, I cannot take responsibility for saying or suggesting any brand or any product, because I am not there, I'm not making it. So if I will tell you, for example, that I suggest or recommend this company because it should be clear, but I am only seeing a label of one thing, and what if the label is wrong? So what I'm saying, what should be done is that a federation or ministry, sport authority of India should have a contract, or should be, the ministry should be actually allowing a company to make particularly products for its sportsmen. And that's how it should be done, because then if anyone takes blame and anyone takes responsibility, it's big. And especially when there is agreement between something like government, sport authority of India, and a company, a brand which makes supplements, then they surely will try to make it clean. And that's what is going on in the States, in Europe. So countries have contracts with companies. And if I will tell my sailors to take any product and then they will find out that it's actually illegal, then I will be to blame. And I don't want it, and I'm not feeling comfortable to take that responsibility.
Agree with you on that. The last point probably is that you can actually make your own protein shakes using stuff like ragi and flax seeds and so many other things which can come into your own little shakes with using
Sure,
the stuff available in India.
Sure.
So, but I would recommend that as many teams as possible get a qualified, good senior nutritionist on board who can recommend quite happily exactly what kind of nutrition intake all the sailors need to have. So I think we will end with that. The poll is going to go on for a few minutes more, and look forward to everybody joining us next, the coming Thursday and then Sunday. Thanks
Thank you, everyone.
discuss the topics
Stay
again.
safe. Bye-bye.